Hello, everyone. So, going live. This is going to be the last live for the week. So, everyone can kind of get out there and enjoy their weekend. Let's see. Jake on, and then we will go ahead and get started. Hey, Afton. I'm still in Waynesboro if you want to hang out afterwards.
Hey, Drummond.
Hey, how are you?
Good. You hear me okay?
Yes, I love your background.
Sweet. Thank you. Got my pride flag. Unfortunately, not a lot of pride events this year, but I had my own party.
Yeah, we definitely have experienced some new stuff for 2020.
Yeah, for sure. How are you doing?
I'm good. I am ending the day with this, so I think it's going to be phenomenal. I know that, I've been
Yeah.
ending a lot of my days this week with these, and usually I'm pretty tired, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I want to do it. But then they're
Mm,
usually like the best part of my day, so I'm pretty excited
good.
to
Yeah.
end my
I'm
work week
excited
this way.
too. Right? It's a good way to start the weekend off.
So, for those of you that are joining that might not know Jake, I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself, and then we will kind of just jump into today's topic, which is yoga and self care. So, if you want to just go
Yeah.
ahead and introduce yourself, go right ahead.
Yeah. Well, so I'm Jake. I'm coming at you from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Let's see. I'm a yoga teacher. I am a physical therapist. I graduated from both of those programs actually within the past few months, so during the pandemic. So I've been trying to navigate that. And yeah, what else? I love animals. I have a kitty who's probably standing right here. I don't know if, oh, do you see her?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So she's been bugging me because I just had a snack and she didn't get one yet. But after this, she will get dinner.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I guess I was really excited when you reached out to me to have this talk because I just think it's so important right now to be taking time to take care of yourself, maybe try something new that you haven't done before, whether it's yoga or a different form of self-care. And that's what I'm all about, is pretty much just finding ways to teach people what I know and hopefully help people reach their goals, find some sources of healing in their lives, whatever it might be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely. I mean, you just kind of touched on you were finishing up school right in the middle of a pandemic. I know that that is definitely crazy. My little sister graduated in the spring. She didn't actually
Mm,
get to do like the whole graduation thing because of the pandemic. It was supposed to
yeah.
be moved to this fall, but I'm guessing since COVID is still pretty rampant that we're not going to be doing that. But you
Yeah.
do yoga. And when a lot of times when you think yoga, you think you're in a classroom, you're with a group of people. So with COVID and everything, we've kind of had to move those types of things to a more virtual type setting. So
Yeah.
how exactly do you do yoga and stuff with the people that you work with?
hmm Yeah, I think you definitely brought up a good point that before COVID, we had studios, the people had communities, they had different kinds of classes and just ways to connect with others in real life. And I think there's pros and cons to how yoga has kind of changed and developed over just the last 6 months. Um, I think one of the downsides, of course, is a lot of people aren't able to go out and go to the studios that they used to love and often go to. And just as a teacher, I've never gotten to teach a class in person, unfortunately, because I finished my program in April. So there's that. But I also think that the silver lining is I know a lot of people have tried yoga in the past few months that have never tried it before because of more access to just, whether it's a YouTube video, whether it's a Zoom class, teachers being able to reach people from all over the world without the constraints of having to travel to a physical location and join a club and pay fees and all that. So I think that there's been more opportunity for learning. And especially because I think a lot of people are held back from doing yoga because of some preconceived ideas about what it is and what it isn't. maybe for some people it's the fear of judgment, of, you know, not being able to do the poses perfectly, or maybe someone who thinks that they're not flexible enough and therefore they wouldn't want to be around other people for fear of, you know, people judging them, which is terrible. But with that being said, I think a lot of people have found a new way to be and do yoga by themselves in the privacy and the safety of their own homes, which I think is a beautiful thing. I think it you still you don't really get some of the positive aspects of yoga, like being in that class and having that community support. So pros and cons, of course, but yeah. So in terms of what I'm doing, it's kind of like I'm just now starting it. I was like, it was always my dream to actually teach an in-person class and kind of fuse that with my physical therapy practice, but I've been having to make a lot of adjustments in my life as I'm sure most of us have. So I'm just trying to figure that out now. I just started I figured we'd talk about it at some point, but I'm starting kind of an online class series with Zoom classes. I know everyone's probably sick of Zoom by now, but I was hoping that, you know, people would be able to do something like that from the safety of their homes while also getting the community aspect of being in a live class, even though it's on Zoom. That's kind of what I am going for.
Yeah, I think that one thing a lot of people are experiencing right now in 2020 is just like chaos. Their mind is just like all over the place. I know that fear is definitely something that a lot of people probably, it runs across their mind quite a bit, whether it's the fear of what's going to happen to their family, their career, their income, anything like that. So I know that I've only done yoga once. It was something that someone asked me to go and do because I live in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of hard to find classes.
Mm.
And internet is also a thing that Zoom classes and stuff is hard. I'm sitting here in my office so that I have service enough to do live videos. But
Mm.
I definitely think that when it comes to yoga and self-care and meditation, I think that's probably why a lot of people are trying that right now, is because everything's so chaotic, everything's so unknown, and that's really scary. And I feel like
Mm.
meditation and yoga is something that kind of brings you back to yourself. And I think that that's probably the reason why a lot of people are trying that. What are some things that you want to do with like your class to kind of help people out with the chaotic life that they're trying to escape?
Yeah. Well, I think, of course, there's lots of chaos going on in the outside world. We're constantly being bombarded with, you know, stuff from the media, news stories, all, you know, just the craziness. We don't really have to go into just how scary things can be right now, because I think we all know. But what I really, you know, what I love about yoga and meditation and just self-care in general, and especially meditation, is being able to channel, kind of find a safe place for yourself despite the chaos around you. So, like, we always have access to our breath and finding the present moment. And I don't know, it sounds, sometimes some people might say that sounds corny or whatever, but it's a real thing where we can, it's a choice that we can make every day. Like, are we going to be so affected by the outside world that it's draining us and stressing us out? You know, our cortisol is releasing and our health is struggling. Or can we be mindful about how that's making us feel and go to a place deeper within ourselves, even if it's just for 5 minutes a day, just getting a change in perspective and going inward instead of outward. It's been incredibly healing for me. It's what's, you know, gotten me through this. And I think that if more people took more time for themselves and went more inward instead of outward, I think that people would be happier and find more sources of healing, and definitely recommend that.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast the other day on my ride home, and it was talking about how we really make excuses for timing in our life. So we might spend an hour on social media, but then we'll say that we don't have time for an hour class of yoga. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
we we have plenty of time in the day, especially now that a lot of us aren't commuting, a lot of us don't have jobs, and I think that when it comes to uh, the timing that you create, I think it's important that you realize you have control over the timing. Scheduling is not as hard as people make it seem to be. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that, so I just started reading Jay Shetty's book. I don't know if you know who that is, but
Mm-hmm.
he's a famous YouTuber who he actually went into like monkhood to become a monk, and he left after 3 years, and he came back out, and he's trying to like teach what he learned. And one of the things he did say was the first day he went in, he had like an 11-year-old child tell him that the reason why they teach breathing first is because that is the one thing that you always have control over. From the day you are born to the day that you die, that's the one thing that you have control over. So I kind of thought it was cool that you mentioned breathing. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the biggest things. I think when I did yoga for the first time, um, I was just kind of struggling with a lot. I'm definitely not flexible. I was in a class with a lot of girls who were very flexible. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have very good balance. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the moves that they were asking me to do, I was like the teacher kept like coming over and like pushing my body into the position
Mm-hmm.
because I was just very
Ooh,
nervous
I don't
about
like
falling.
that.
I just didn't want
No.
anything. I didn't want to fall and knock anyone over beside me because we were pretty close. But
Yeah.
when it comes to doing it at home, what are some things that you think are important in like your surroundings and the environment that you're doing yoga in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think definitely creating kind of a safe space for yourself. Some people may not feel like they have enough space in their apartment or their or whatever, wherever the living situation is. But like I had to, like I moved around everything so I could make a space. So it's about making a space for yourself. So there's as few barriers as possible. Just like, if you're trying to start getting into a routine of running in the morning, put your shoes literally right on the foot of your bed. And so taking away those barriers as much as you can is what will help with behavior change. So like I always leave my mat out now. I leave my blocks next to my mat. I like get into that routine, and even if it's not a hour long sweaty yoga session, like doing it in the morning, especially like right after you wake up, and just setting an intention for the day and just getting some movement, even if it's not like exercise, has been life changing for me. So I'd say that like get a safe space where it's not loud and noisy and distracting, and take away the barriers as much as you can.
Awesome. Yeah. So I one of the ways that I exercise, because I don't really do the gym. I don't like being surrounded by people. You were talking about like judgment. It's not so much judgment. I just don't like being stared at.
Mm-hmm.
And I I usually do hiking, and I was hiking the other day, and there was this person with her tablet. She was on a Zoom call for yoga, but she took her tablet. I guess she found the perfect spot for service in the mountains, but she actually had her tablet and her mat out on this rock on the top of a mountain, which was like the most beautiful, serene area to do something like that.
What?
And I was just like applauding her for doing that. And she's like, yeah, I came up here last week just to see if I had service. And I told my teacher that I was coming up here. And I just thought that that was a really cool thing. Like people think yoga has to be done inside because usually that's
Mm-hmm.
where they take their classes at. But there's tons of classes that have been held outside during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's probably a lot of parks and places where you could practice that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you bring up a really great point, and I have a slight obsession with doing yoga outside. And even if it's not like setting up my mat and having this dedicated time to do yoga, I just love being outside. If you check out my Instagram page, like half of my pictures are me doing some funny shape outside. And it's just like, I don't know, it just really helps with like form a connection with nature. And it really kind of bridges the gap between, like with most kinds of exercise, you're just running on a treadmill in a room or whatever. And it's not really it doesn't really bridge the gap between your life in the gym and your life in the outside world. So my yoga for me is isn't just on my mat. It's where I go throughout the day. It's if I'm outside on a hike or whatever and I see a rock that I want to climb and just lay down and do a savasana for a minute. Like, I don't know. I just try to get creative with it.
So there's probably a lot of people that will end up watching this that have probably never tried yoga. They probably they know what the idea is. They probably don't know too much past just kind of the visual that they see on people's social medias. How would you explain that to someone? And like, when it comes to like self-care, I know that what type of exercise, what we eat, all of that is really important to like our state of mind. What would you tell people to kind of say, hey, like, this is the best thing for you right now? This is something that I highly recommend to start doing.
Yeah, well, I'd say at first, just try to let go of any preconceived ideas about what you think yoga is or isn't. And because what yoga is, or at least what it should be, is just mindful movement. So it's just some form of movement, or it doesn't even have to be movement, it's just mindfulness. And it's about connecting with your body and your breath. So it doesn't have to involve getting into any crazy shapes or doing a killer workout or anything like that. It's pretty much just about, breaking up your normal kinds of habits and trying something new and listening to your body. It's about doing what feels good. I think some styles of yoga have kind of taken a turn to, it has to look like this. There's these specific rules, like just to throw a name out, Bikram Yoga. I don't know if you've watched the documentary about Bikram on Netflix. It's a disaster. But like that style of yoga, it's great for some people, but it's very rule based and it's very like it excludes people almost. Like it's not accessible and it intimidates people from starting yoga because they think that they can't do these crazy shapes. So I'd say if you're interested in starting yoga, get a mat for one. That's the first thing. You should have a mat. Try a beginner flow on YouTube. Try just laying on your mat for 5 minutes and then just rolling around and doing what feels good and just start to notice different patterns in your movement. The class that I'm teaching on Sundays, so my first one, I'll be teaching this Sunday at 11 a.m. It's going to be designed for beginners, for all levels actually. And so it's going to be, easy physically. So it's not going to be like Bikram yoga. It's going to be very mindful and slow and all about connecting movements with the breath. And so I'd say that's what you got to do. You got to just listen to your body and keep breathing. And there's no right or wrong way to do anything as long as it feels good to you.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of people know that I've been like working on my own life coaching business. I've got several clients that I work with. And so I'm constantly in the process of trying to learn new methods of coaching. And it's crazy how almost every single type of thing that I go into suggests some type of yoga or some type of meditation or some type of breathing. And I've just recently kind of started digging into like the religion of Buddhism just because a lot of the stuff that I've read comes from the learnings and teachings of Buddha, and I've seen so much stuff. So I was really interested in kind of talking to you about this because in other lives that I've done, I've kind of known more about what we were going to be talking about. This time around, I'm kind of learning as we go as well. So these questions
Yeah.
are for me as well as other people. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to like the different teachings and stuff, is that something that you also focus on?
Mm-hmm. Like Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually don't have much of an experience with Buddhism. Someone actually recently said to me that they think that I was like Buddhist in another life, or that I should like look into Buddhism, but I just haven't taken that step yet. I am Jewish. I've heard that Judaism and Buddhism have a lot of overlap in some of the ideology. So it's definitely something I want to look more into. I mean, from what my understanding is it's letting go of your desires because you know, you need to transcend this life in order to find eternal bliss in the next life. I believe that's pretty much what the central concept of it is. And when I get very deep into my yoga and meditation practice, I definitely see some overlap there, you know, because when you truly find that moment where you're living in the present, which is so much easier said than done, like that's when you let go of those desires. And that's pretty much the only time like genuine joy is happening, you know, because when you feel like when you have this kind of artificial sense of joy, if you just, you know, if you just bought a new car or, you know, got a fancy new toy or even a delicious meal, I do believe food feeds the soul, but like it is a fleeting kind of desire. So I definitely believe in that aspect of Buddhism is finding time and space to let go and be in the present. But I mean, I also feel like stuff in this life is very important too. Like I don't think that I'm about to go run off to a monastery and be a monk. Like I don't think that's my path, but I think I understand it and I want to learn more about it.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed when I was like reading through a lot of my life coaching books to kind of just, I'm the type of person that I just want to fill myself with information. And a
Hmm.
lot of times when I'm reading books, and someone did say that like most religions are interconnected.
Yeah, I
I
love that
wish
comment.
the world could see more of that. And honestly, yeah, I think it's funny because a lot of the life coaching books, because I grew up with a Christian upbringing and I've got people in my family who are Jewish and I've got people in my family who don't believe in a religion. And it's crazy because the books that I read, because I want to educate myself on other people's religions, I have noticed
Mhm.
that a lot of it's interconnected and it's almost like life coaching books kind of
Mhm.
say the exact same thing as the Bible, except for they just pulled the name God out of it. And
Mhm.
it's the same teachings, it's just
Mhm.
they removed the word God. And
Mhm.
when I do life coaching, I think that I've kind of pulled my religious beliefs out of that because
Mhm.
I'm not the type of person to ever try to push my beliefs on someone else. And
Mhm.
I will go with whatever religious belief that they have, and that's kind of how we mold my coaching around that. So I like that comment that someone put, and I think it's really
Mhm.
important for people to realize that we are a lot more connected to each other than we believe. I think
Mhm.
we get too focused on titles and
Mhm.
stereotypes. I think that it's important to get to know one another on a deeper level for sure. Uh,
Mhm.
One of the things that you were talking about is kind of like clearing your mind, and that's
Mhm.
something that I have a really hard time doing.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
one of those people that while I'm talking, I've probably already planned out half of the rest of the stuff that I plan on talking about. And
Mhm.
what is some of your advice for like someone like me to kind of help clear my mind to where I can have one of those moments in yoga to where maybe my mind is clear or more clear without all the
Yeah.
chaos.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good question, and it's something I struggle with all the time. You know, I just finished graduate school, and it was a shit show at times, and I get stressed all the time. Like, you know, but I think that, you know, taking time. So one little exercise that I tried the other day, so laying down, it doesn't have to be on a mat, it can be wherever, you can do it when you're sitting, is so just recognizing we all have that inner chatter. You know, we have that voice that's saying, you got to do this, you got to make sure dinner's ready, you got to make sure you submit this proposal. The monkey mind, it just never stops. And, you know, whenever that monkey mind is going, we're not living in the present, we're living in the past or in the future. And that's releasing cortisol. It's stressing our system out. So one step is just being mindful of that and being mindful of the fact that you are not your thoughts. You know, your thoughts might be part of you, but that voice in your head, that's just a part of you. And having agency over that is very important. So in addition to just relaxing and focusing on your breath and deep breathing, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they suggested creating kind of like a separation using your mind. So they called it observing the interpreter. So your interpreter is your monkey mind, your chattering voice in your head. That's what's trying to interpret everything around you and make all these judgments and plans and all that stuff. So if you can recognize that that's not you and form another voice in your head to just observe that interpreter from more of an outside perspective almost. So like the other day when I was trying to meditate and I couldn't focus because I was thinking about the next thing, I just kind of laughed at myself. I was like, huh, my silly brain won't turn off. That interpreter just won't shut up. And it's what it's saying is not actually important right now, because what's important right now is me doing absolutely nothing, you know, which some people, we've been conditioned in our society to think that these forms of self-care is laziness or self-indulgent, or that we need to always be busy and getting the next thing done. But that's not true, because if we're always doing that, you know, we're getting stressed out. It's affecting our health. It's affecting our cognition and our clarity of mind. And it's not helping the others around us either. You know, if you want to be there fully for people in your life and be supportive, and, you know, you got to take care of yourself first. You got to put your own air mask on first in the when you're in the plane and they tell you whatever. You know what I'm getting at. As I
Yeah.
said to you earlier, like an empty cup serves no one. So fill your own cup, spend time on your mat, relaxing, telling the interpreter to stop talking for a second and just breathe.
Yeah, most definitely. So for me, I have, of course, this corporate job where I do trainings for this corporate company. And then I have my YouTube channel and my Instagram that I run, which I'm very thankful for, that I have the opportunity to get paid to do stuff like this. And then, of course, I've got my own life coaching business. And when you've got that much going on, sometimes you do feel like when you do take a break, you're like wasting valuable time that could be used
Mm-hmm.
towards all these things that just aren't going to function without you doing something. And
Yeah.
I definitely learned that I can wear myself out to the point of my body's not going to let me do it anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
this year, I've learned a lot when it comes to that type of stuff. I've learned to take weekends off of everything, to just reconnect with myself and with the environment around me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was so focused on, oh my gosh, I've got to get this done, I've got to get this done. And I've learned that if I cram that productivity into a schedule,
Mm-hmm.
it is perfectly okay to take time off. And
Mm-hmm.
this year, I've learned that eventually your body will just stop. Your body will say no if you push it too far. I went on a hike and I was not prepared for it. I did not eat what I should have eaten before. I was planning for a very short hike, and it ended up being very long and very straight up. And my brain was like telling me, move your leg up, climb this mountain, and my leg wasn't moving. And that had never happened to me before. I've never been at the point where my brain is saying something and my body doesn't respond to it. And that was a really scary moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then with everything that's on my plate with 2020, I've gotten to points where my brain just gave up. Like it was just done. Like I
Mm-hmm.
put way too much stress all on it from every single aspect possible. And
Mm-hmm.
I had it like, it wasn't so much like a mental breakdown where things just went crazy. It was just where my body was just like, go to sleep. You're not doing
Yeah.
anything else. So I definitely
Mm-hmm.
have been looking into yoga. I've definitely been looking into meditation because I have started to notice that I do need to care about my body in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really great that you had kind of like that wake up call almost. A lot of people maybe don't realize it. They're so disconnected from their body that they don't realize that they're doing damage until you reach even more of a breaking point. Like as a physical therapist and like me trying to integrate yoga and meditation with physical therapy, I think it's so important for preventing a lot of issues that may start to pop up in our 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever it is. And getting on that now and establishing these habits when you're in your 20s and 30s or older, younger, whatever, is so important, because stress is literally a killer. So I'm really glad that you are noticing that within you and hopefully taking steps to combat that and more like join forces with your body rather than, you know, doing damage. So that's great.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that you only get one body. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, the way that you treat your body is so important, especially if you want it fully functioning the older you get. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I I was definitely blessed with where my metabolism was just like great. I was just like I could eat anything and be perfectly fine. Now that I'm starting to get older, I am 32 now, and I am starting to realize like if I go hiking after I eat pizza and tons of junk food the day before, I feel like crap compared to the days where I ate a healthy meal, went to bed, got a full amount of sleep. And when you're young,
Mm-hmm.
you don't realize that full impact. But I'm sure if I actually look back and actually looked at, I wonder if I had eaten better and taken like a gym session and stuff during college, would my
Mm-hmm.
body have been as stressed as it was during tests and all of those different things? Because even now, like my focus level, I can sense when my focus is off. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to look at the things around me like, did I sleep well last night? What did I eat? What
Mm-hmm.
am I putting in my body? And it's crazy when you start to notice those types of things and realize everything that you're doing has a huge impact on the way that you live your day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's called mindfulness. That's a really excellent point, you know. I think it's really important to understand that we have agency, we have control over a lot of those things. I think some people have a mindset where they're like they think they're indestructible or even the opposite. They think that because something is in my genetics, oh my parents had this issue or whatever, then there's no point and that's just how it's going to be. But so much of how we age and just our day-to-day function and performance from our mental and physical health are relatively within our control from doing things like improving our sleep quality, improving what we're eating, meditation, finding movement, finding exercise, establishing those daily routines. So it's great that you have that kind of embodied sense of when, you know, you're distractible or when you're exhausted or when something's not quite right, because not everyone has that kind of connection and that kind of mindfulness. So that's great.
Yeah, it's definitely something. So when I was going through like my certifications to become a life coach, I'm one of those people that I can't just accept the idea of just be happy. I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable telling my clients, oh, you know what? You just need to think positively. So I was one of the people in my online class that I just kept asking. I was like, I need more than that. Like, there's got to be more information about this. And my
Mm-hmm.
professor kind of gave me a book to read called The Biology of Positivity.
Ooh,
And
sounds good.
it's crazy. They've done studies where they like check like your cellular makeup and like the reproduction of cells in your body, and they were showing how like when cells were like multiplying, and that's one of the ways that your body heals. They were showing like a negative mindset and how the cells really just slowed down. So they
Mm-hmm.
stopped kind of doing their work, whereas like a healthy, positive person is just like super fast. And they were showing
Yes.
how someone with a very negative mindset, their cells are
Mm-hmm.
producing as though it was someone in their like late 80s. And then they were showing like changing their mindset. And once again, yoga was something that they talked about. So once again, another reason why I'm very interested in learning more. But I saw someone's comment where they said you don't look 32. I honestly feel like, because I've looked at people my age that have graduated with me, and there have been some people who haven't aged gracefully. And I do think that my mindset definitely helps me out. I've always been the type of person that I try to be kind, I try to be helpful, I try to see the best in things. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really important when it comes to living a happy life. Also, like alcohol and stuff, I never really got into. So I think those can also like dehydrate you and
Mhm.
cause lots of image things with your body. But
For
now that I'm
sure.
older, I think that I am becoming more aware. I think that that's something that people should probably take note of. I know that there's lots of different apps and stuff out there that kind of help
Mhm.
you view what you're putting into your body. And
Mhm.
I think just having that mindset. So for you, like, I know that it's more of a lifestyle. So it's more than just you doing yoga. What are some other
Mhm.
things that you're doing in your life that you think kind of help you keep the yoga at the center of everything that you're doing?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just like what you said about mindset is so incredibly important. Like, that's such an interest of mine. I think the Western medicine hasn't caught up with that yet. I think that's something that's been known in more Eastern and traditional kinds of spaces for thousands and thousands of years. And, I think it's so important to make that less of a taboo and really address how your mindset can have cellular changes in your body. Like there's been research about how your mindset can affect cancer and all kinds of other diseases. And it's everything, it's our mind body connection is so real. And taking steps to improve that connection can have tons of benefits for your health. So, more to answer your question, yeah, I think that for me, exercise, like my history, my journey with yoga and that kind of thing, I think it started out as a place of just wanting to find exercise. I started out thinking like I should do yoga because I will be able to do these cool poses and I will get stronger and get a yoga bod and that kind of thing. And while, those things are great and everything, I think the more that I practiced, the more it became like an intrinsic thing, like something that I really just love to do for not even like words to describe it. And so yeah, I think that movement is central for me, and other things that are central to having, those positive lifestyle behaviors is what you put into your body, of course, what you put on your body, what you anything that you're putting in or on your body goes into your bloodstream, and then sleep. So that's the big three for me is movement, sleep, and nutrition. And then there's, tons of other things that kind of relate to those three, and mindset kind of relates to all of them. But yeah, so just thinking about your life and thinking like how can I improve my sleep quality? How can I improve what I'm eating, or, what kind of toxins I'm consuming that's forcing my body to have to go into overdrive, my immune system to have to function harder than it needs to, especially with immune function right now. There's a deadly virus going around. And so I think doing anything we can to help not hurt our immune system and our body and our minds, starting with, the movement, the diet, and the sleep, are a really good place to start, you know.
Definitely. So one thing that you kind of talked about, which I think is something that I've talked to some of my clients about, is the medication side of things, where we forget how much certain things that we can do that don't require medication can help us out. And I think a lot of times, when it comes to like the pharmaceutical side of things, I think they are more focused on money than they are helping people heal from. They would
Mhm.
prefer people to remain dependent on medication. And I think
Mhm.
that one thing that people forget is, yes, some people have a chemical imbalance that medication will help them out. And I'm definitely not going to say that you should stop taking medication. But I think a lot of people don't realize that when you're on medication, there's also ways that you can adjust things in your life, because your body does release a lot of natural chemicals that do deal with depression.
Mhm.
So I think that's really important to realize that there are things that you can actually do while you're
Mhm.
also on medication. One of my friends, I remember in college, she was on a lot of different medications, and you could tell when the medications needed to be upped because she was like perfectly happy, and then you kind of see a decline. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but she started doing things like hiking. She started doing stuff like yoga, exercising every day. She joined lots of different groups in Richmond, Virginia, and she's actually off of her medication now. And
Nice.
I've never seen her happier. And I
Great.
think that sometimes people underestimate the modifications that they could make in their own life. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that just kind of talking about yoga and the different types of things that you can change, like diet, I personally know that when it comes to like caffeine in my body, it makes me a little bit like antsy, which makes me anxious, which
Mm-hmm.
right before something like I'm doing something like a job interview or something that I'm already going to be nervous about,
Mm-hmm.
uh, adding caffeine to that, like
Yeah,
my
not a good
anxiety goes through
idea.
the roof.
For
So
sure.
I think that it's really important. And also, like, something I wanted to touch on is the environment that you create also includes the people that you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you say that you have had to work on your environment and the stuff that you keep around you to kind of keep yourself center focused?
For sure. Also, I just love everything that you just said. It was, if more people could have that kind of mindset, I think a lot of people are super quick to want a quick fix, a pill, medicine, something that has research behind it from pharmaceutical companies that are trying to make a profit. So that's so great that your friend is off her medication and is able to find some more intrinsic sources of joy, because what we do and what we think, that has chemical effects in our body, just like a pill does. And all these pills are from plants. So I think having a more lifestyle approach is what's going to be sustainable. I think the primary goal of being on a medication should be to find a way to get off of it as quickly as you can, safely, and find lifestyle changes that will help support. And like you said, that's not for everyone, of course. Like, some people definitely require these medications, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that we can do to support ourselves in a more sustainable, healthy way. So yeah, in terms of kind of what I do to find that sustainable, healthy way, and controlling my environment. And first of all, like, we can't control every aspect of our environment. That's impossible. We can't control the pollution around us, and we can't control everything that's in our food and in our water, and we can't control some rude person being behind us in the grocery store or whatever it is. But I think, first of all, if it's something that seems to be out of your control, having a little mindfulness, and just, rather than being so reactive to your emotions, trying to take a little bit of a step back and let your emotions pass through, because they will pass. And taking those steps, there's, I'm lucky to have a lot of really supportive, awesome people in my life. But of course, there's been times in the past where I've been friends with someone or friends with a group of people, and I don't feel good while I'm with them, or I feel insecure in some way, or it just overall doesn't, I feel like it's not making my life better, and I'm hanging out with these people or this person for some reason that isn't true to who I am and what I want. And so just finding ways, like, who we're around and what our environment is affects our minds and our bodies in so many ways. And so, yeah, I've definitely had to make adjustments, but I think at the end of the day, just like being truthful with yourself and truthful with those people around you, I think a natural kind of balance eventually comes. And I think I've definitely grown up a lot since college. Like, back in college, I felt like, you know, sometimes it felt like I had to be around certain people or do certain things to fit in and whatever. And now it's different. Like, I'm not going out till 2 in the morning, 3 times a week and that kind of thing. I have a lot more space, and I feel like I have a lot more control over my life and who I spend my time with, because time is such a precious gift. So yeah, that's kind of how I try to approach it. I still have tons more growing to do and learning. So I'm definitely not like an expert in wellness or life or whatever. So yeah, I guess I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I think that happens a lot in today's world is we compare ourselves with people that are in different stages in their life. So a lot of people, uh, they don't see the journeys that we've come from to get to where we are right now. And I know that a lot of people have come up to me and talked to me and said, well, if my life was like yours, and so for the people that kind of like look at your page and they're just like, okay, well, he's obviously made for this. This is like what he does. This is all he does with his life. We Everyone compares each other with themselves just because. I mean, you look at people and you go, oh, they seem to be always on vacation. They
Mhm.
seem to have the perfect body for this type of thing. What would you
Mhm.
say to people that are thinking those types of thoughts, and that might be the reason that's keeping them from kind of starting that journey into yoga or any type of new thing that they want to try?
Yeah. Well, I think something that I learned a lot in my yoga teacher training, so before I started training, I was like, I've got to like know all these poses and I have to be so good at yoga and like all this stuff. And then I showed up the first day on yoga teacher training and it was people from all walks of life, one lady who was in her 80s and people who had all different shapes of body and colors of skin and just completely different people who had some of them had never done yoga in their life, but they wanted to do yoga teacher training to learn more about themselves and for whatever reason improve health. There's so many different reasons to try something new. So I think that it can be easy to have a quick judgment like I can't do this because I'm not cut out for it or I don't know how or for whatever reason. So just kind of questioning your first thought about something and if you want to do something, like we all start from somewhere. So whether it's like if it's yoga, everyone starts as a beginner. Like I wasn't magically like able to do lotus pose and all the warriors and whatever. It's all about if you want to do something, that's you. Like you can find a way to do it and don't worry about, what other people are going to think. Question your fears about it and it's your life.
Awesome. So you were just talking about how you are just now kind of starting your yoga stuff. I know that we kind of talked about how people on this might want to kind of jump in and work with you and do stuff like so. For people who are interested in working with you with starting yoga, what would they have to do? What do they need to do to sign up or just get started
Yeah,
with you?
yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, follow me on Instagram. I just started like a week ago. I made a website. So I put the link to my website on my Instagram bio. And basically what I'm doing is I'm teaching 2 classes a week on Zoom. So jump in, you register in advance and it sends you the info. Um, and so I'm saying come for free if you bring a friend, you know? Just bring one person, don't worry about paying whatever. And then other than that, like if it's donation based, you could donate 1 cent, you could donate $10, whatever it is. And even if you aren't ready to jump into a class, maybe scroll through some of my posts. I do a lot, I try to include a lot of knowledge, both for beginners and also for people with more experience. So just look through my posts on Instagram and see if anything speaks to you. And if it's not your style, don't think that yoga is not for you. Find another way. And maybe it's not yoga. Maybe you start doing Tai Chi or just go for a daily meditative walk or something. Or find a different yoga teacher. One style of yoga, one teacher isn't for everyone. Search beginner yoga on YouTube. But I am trying to appeal to a couple different types, styles, that kind of thing, because my Sunday morning class, as I said, will be very restorative, relaxing, rejuvenating, with the goal of decreasing stress and learning how to move more fluidly and more efficiently. Um, Throwing in PT knowledge, if you have text neck or computer screen neck, or if you have hip impingement, just I'm throwing in little modifications and little tidbits of knowledge from a physical therapy perspective. And then my Wednesday class is more like if you want more fire. I call it Physio Yoga Fire. So it's more of a workout. There's still meditation and mindfulness involved, of course. And but we go through a couple more of like a faster pace, quicker transitions. It's better for someone who has a bit more, at least some experience in yoga and fitness and that kind of thing.
Awesome. Yeah, I would definitely. It's crazy because in pictures and stuff, I can see like my shoulders. I can see like posture when people take pictures of me from candid shots that I don't enjoy. You know, the
The
ones that I'm
worst,
talking
yeah.
about, the ones that people post of you on Facebook that didn't get your approval.
Right.
And I've definitely learned that posture was something that I needed to focus more on if I wanted to have a body with decent posture when I got older. So that's definitely
Hmm.
something that I've been looking into. Uh,
Hmm.
I tried different things when it came to like things that kept me more straight in the shoulders.
Hmm.
When it comes to like life coaching and when it comes to leadership development, one thing that I talk a lot about is like the message that you're sending across to your audience with your body.
Hmm.
And it's funny because I'm not very insecure. I have no problem talking in front of large crowds,
Hmm.
but my body posture definitely reads differently than what I would like it to read.
Sure.
It's definitely, I've had people say, well, you come off very timid and shy. And I'm like, fooled ya. And every time I've asked, they're just like, well, you kind of like pull your shoulders to the center. And I also
Hmm.
realize that when it comes to stress, which I do a lot of,
Hmm.
um, my neck and shoulders here are always tense. Every single
Hmm.
time I've ever gone to get a massage, uh, they're like, uh-oh. I'm like, yep, you
Yep.
found it. It's
It's an
there.
epidemic. Yeah. It's so true. And that's interesting. Like I think that that's definitely an issue that a lot of people have is the rounded shoulders. I think a lot of what our society is setting us up for with all the screen time and the desk jobs is that. But and then some people just have like in their personality, like you said, you don't seem like a very shy person, but some people tend to close themselves off from the world a little bit. And so whatever the reason, whether it's because of your environment, your computer, your desk screen, your ergonomics, or if it's something deeper, just trying to check in with your posture, do a quick body scan and ask yourself, how is this serving me? How is this posture serving me, or whatever if the posture may be. And like I always say, there's no right or wrong posture, but the most important thing is it serving you the way you want it to serve you? Are you projecting what you want to project, just like what you said? And all these little contraptions and all the ergonomic things are great, but the most important thing is just breaking up those patterns and getting more movement into your day. So you don't want to be, so some might say like this is good posture, but you don't want to be like that all day either, or else you'll get tight in different areas. So finding some like movement breaks throughout your day, whether it's you're just sitting at your desk or whether you get up and stand, if you have a standing desk, I'm going to teach little like 5 minute movement breaks like within my classes. And I'm going to preface it with, consider doing this during your 9 to 5, during your desk job. It's just maybe something with your arms, something you can easily do at a desk or standing in front of a desk, because, we're not going to be sitting upright all day long. We're going to be hunching at some point, but just finding ways to break it up and be mindful about it is important.
Yeah, most definitely. I know that when I drive, I kind of do the slouch thing.
Mm.
So I definitely have to focus on that. And one way that I kind of fixed that was just moving myself closer to the steering wheel to where I
Mm.
didn't have that space to slouch.
Right.
But something that I noticed that I've been experiencing since COVID, because I was actually working from home for the first couple of months when this happened. My
Mm.
company sent us home at the beginning of March, and it wasn't until June that I started working here. I actually woke up one morning and I could not move. I
Oh
had been
gosh.
working out of my bedroom because my sister and my nephew also live with me, and I was sitting in my bed on my computer every single day. So my back being against the wall in the bed, I noticed that there's like a little cove where my sitting used to happen.
Hmm.
And I think I really messed up my lower back just
Oh,
because I wasn't paying attention to the position that I was putting myself in for hours on end. And
hmm.
it was scary. Like I freaked out about it just because like I couldn't even bend over to wash my hands without like a
Oh
sharp pain
no.
shooting up my spinal cord.
Oh
I was just
gosh.
like, "Oh no,
Yeah.
I'm only 31. I can't be dealing with this."
Oh, I'm
So,
sorry. How
uh
did you deal with that? Like, did it get better?
stretches.
Yeah.
So I took pain medication so that the pain wasn't as intense, so that I could actually stretch.
Hmm.
Um, so it was definitely movement that helped me.
Hmm.
Now that I'm working in an office and I'm in an office chair and my computer's set up so that I do have to sit up straight to function on the computer. So I
Hmm.
do things to like force better posture on myself because like I said, I'm learning a lot about my body in 2020. I'm learning that if I don't take care of it, it's going to punish me. And
Mm.
it's definitely something that I think yoga would probably be a helpful thing to start doing. It's definitely
Yeah.
something I want to get into.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you bring up that 2020 you've had that issue, and you know it's definitely COVID has changed the structure of so many of our lives. It's made our lives smaller. We're moving less. We're stuck in a smaller space. We're dealing with all kinds of sources of stress. And I've heard, like being in healthcare, I've heard stories of like new things that are on the uprise, like of course depression, but all kinds of body issues. And I was at the dentist last week and they told me that, well, so first they noticed that they were like, "Do you grind your teeth?" And I was like, "Probably. I'm sure that I do." And they could like tell that I'd been grinding. And they said that since COVID, there's been like a steep uprise in people who have cracked their teeth, like actually like fractured their teeth
Wow.
from stress because it's super related to stress. And then all those issues that go along with it, the stress that we hold in our necks and pain, chronic pain in the lower back and all kinds of issues. COVID has made a lot of that worse. And that sucks because COVID already sucks enough. Like this whole situation obviously is terrible. So, but we can't let it get the better of us, you know? We've got to find ways to, even though we've had to change our lives and some of our lives have gotten smaller and more restricted, taking those active steps to not let COVID win and not let this situation have long-term effects on us in any ways that we can. So, like you said, yoga is a way that we can do that. Finding other ways, other self-care. I've been going on walks a lot. Like I used to think that walks were a waste of time because it's not like hardcore exercise or whatever, but like walking is so good for mental health and physical health, and especially if you find a nice trail, like that has been such a nice part of COVID for me because it's forced me. I've been going on so many of those walks, and normally I would just go to the gym on the treadmill, whatever, not deal with it, but walking outside has such good benefits.
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like a lot of people, I think yoga would be very beneficial to a lot of people. One, just you were talking about like the physical aspect of it. Two, I think the mental aspect of it is just something that would really be helpful. And
Mhm.
like you said, COVID, we've had to make a lot of adjustments.
Mhm.
And one thing that I've noticed is they've kind of taken away a lot of the things that we have used to do to kind of pull ourselves back, or so like the gyms closed down, a lot of the restaurants and shopping centers and libraries and places that people would go to kind of de-stress after a long day kind of disappeared. They're
Mhm.
slowly coming back, but they're coming back with a different feeling because now when
Mhm.
you go to the grocery store, it's not just grocery shopping. Now you're trying to avoid people.
Mhm.
You feel judged if you sneeze or cough.
Mhm.
So things that maybe used to bring you joy. I know that like the bookstores and coffee shops were places that I really felt stress free. Like I could just sit there and take deep breaths and
Mhm.
read and do my work instead of being in an office or at my house. But now I don't like that's not the same feeling I get. That's not the
Mhm.
relaxation that I was hoping for once they
Yeah.
started opening back up. So I definitely wanted to bring you on to Instagram and just kind of get people to hear kind of what you do, because I think that yoga is definitely something that we can make time for, whether it's the time that you used to commute to your office,
Hmm.
change that time to doing yoga. Like you were saying, like at the beginning of this, you don't have to do a full on hour for it
Yeah.
to be effective. It can be something that you do right when you wake up. It can
Hmm.
it's something you do right before bed.
Yeah. Do 5 minutes of child's pose or something. Just
Yeah.
make a safe time and space for you to do it. Yeah.
And for like the people that have like children and stuff, like your children sleep at some point, we hope.
That's true.
Find
And
that
I
time.
love that point you brought up about like, people's excuse being that there's not enough time in the day, but it's all about rearranging what your priorities are. So you come first, like spending an extra hour on social media isn't gonna be, so good for you if you're not balancing that out with more forms of self-care.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love the new feature that Apple put out, where they tell
Mhm.
you how much screen time you've used
The
per
shame.
week. Uh, I I am ashamed of my numbers. Like they are so extremely high. Granted, like
Yeah.
my job requires me to be on my phone, but I cannot use that as an excuse. I know that I am on my phone way too much. Uh, Honestly, it's gotten to a point where I've made that one of my goals every week is to
Hmm.
bring that number down. So stuff like
Yeah.
this, it counts as social media time, but I always subtract however many hours I've done stuff like this, because I think that this is more of a positive thing. Whereas
Yeah. This is
I
conversation, social
exactly
connection. Like,
all the
yeah.
other stuff, I'm just like, nope. So I'm really glad that we were able to do this. I see that we hit five
Yeah.
o'clock. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for
Yeah,
doing this.
something else I wanted to mention real quick is just when we were talking about my website and the services that I offer, I'm also doing private sessions. So if you go to my website, which is linked in my bio, if you are intimidated, have never tried yoga, or if you have some condition, you have chronic pain or any kind of issue, or you just need some more supervision or just someone to hold you accountable for anything that you're trying to achieve, I have a button on my website and you can reserve me for an hour or 30 minutes or 45 minutes. So that's just another option. And all that information is on my website. So, yeah. And I
Awesome.
want to thank you so much
Thank you for
for
sharing that.
inviting me to do this because I've never done Instagram Live before, but this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think that one thing that we have really noticed lack of is just human interaction, interacting with people. And I think that when it comes to interacting with people, we've got to find ways to continue to do that. And
Mhm.
honestly, I've been looking for people out there that I believe are lights in the community, people that I believe as my channel grows, I would love for their success to also grow with that. I have known you for quite a while. We met way back when you were in college. So
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun kind of watching you grow into someone that I think will definitely inspire a lot of people out there. So I was just like, he is definitely someone that I want to work with. He is definitely someone that I want to share with the world. I'm a firm believer in sharing what helps me move forward. And you're definitely one of those people. When I look at your posts, it's definitely an inspirational thing. It's a moment where I'm just like, he's doing really great. I love what he's doing. I love the positivity he's putting out there. I love that he's giving information. I love that you said that the Zoom stuff, like free, bring a friend, donation based, because that shows that like this isn't something that is just about money for you. This is something that you actually do want to educate. You do want to help people, and I
Mhm.
have no problem with promoting someone like that across my social media. So I'm glad that we connected, and hopefully this brings a lot of people in your direction, and I look forward to watching you grow and succeed in what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me. This was very great, and I hope you have an amazing weekend.
You too.
And we should get in touch again soon.
Yeah, most definitely. Once COVID
Yeah.
like lightens up, maybe we can do a hike or something.
Yes, I'm down.
Awesome.
All right, Drummond, you take
Well,
care.
you too. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.